For more than 1,000 years, Constantinople stood as the most powerful fortress on earth. It was not merely a city. It was a symbol of Roman continuity, Christian authority, immense wealth, and unmatched defensive engineering. Founded by Emperor Constantine the Great in 330 AD, the city had survived countless invasions: Persians, Arabs, Avars, Rus, Bulgars, each shattered against its massive walls. By the mid-5th-10th century, however, Constantinople was no longer the imperial capital of a world-spanning empire. It had become an isolated relic of a dying civilization. The Byzantine Empire, once the Eastern Roman Empire, had been reduced to little more than the city itself and a handful of surrounding territories. Its population had dwindled, its treasury was nearly empty, and its political influence had vanished. Yet even in decline, Constantinople remained a prize beyond measure. The city sat at the crossroads of Europe and Asia, controlling the Bosporus Strait, one of the most important trade routes in the world. Whoever controlled Constantinople controlled commerce between the Black Sea and the Mediterranean. For centuries, it had been the greatest prize of empires, and in 1453, a new power had set its sights on it. That power was the Ottoman Empire. The Ottomans had risen rapidly from a small Anatolian principality into a formidable Islamic empire. By the early 5th-10th century, they surrounded Constantinople on all sides. Only the city's legendary defenses prevented its fall. Ottoman armies had attempted to capture Constantinople multiple times before, but none had succeeded. Everything changed with the rise of one man, Mehmed II. Born in 1432, Mehmed ascended to the Ottoman throne at just 19 years old. Unlike many young rulers, he was highly educated, fluent in multiple languages, and obsessed with history. He studied Alexander the Great, Julius Caesar, and Islamic conquerors. Above all, he was consumed by a single goal: the conquest of Constantinople. For Mehmed, this was not just a military objective, it was destiny. Islamic prophecy spoke of a great leader who would one day conquer Constantinople. Mehmed believed he was that leader. On the Byzantine side, Emperor Constantine XI Palaiologos faced an impossible situation. He ruled a city that once housed over 500,000 people, but now contained fewer than 50,000. The empire had no real army left. What remained were mercenaries, volunteers, and a small corps of loyal defenders. Constantine XI was a capable and courageous ruler, but he had inherited a collapsing state. Desperate for help, he appealed to Western Europe, offering religious union between the Eastern Orthodox and Roman Catholic churches in exchange for military aid. The response was minimal. Western Europe was divided by its own conflicts. France and England were exhausted from the 100 Years' War. The Holy Roman Empire was politically fragmented. The Pope offered words, prayers, and limited support, but no massive army. Constantinople would largely stand alone. By early 1453, Mehmed II began preparing one of the most ambitious military campaigns of the medieval world. He assembled an army estimated between 80,000 and 100,000. Some sources place it even higher. This force included elite janissaries, heavy infantry, cavalry, engineers, and artillery units. But what truly made this siege different was technology. For centuries, Constantinople's Theodosian Walls had been considered impregnable. 3 layers of stone walls, massive towers, and a deep moat protected the city's landward side. These defenses had repelled every known siege until gunpowder. Mehmed hired a Hungarian engineer named Urban, who designed enormous cannons, capable of firing stone balls, weighing hundreds of kilograms. The largest of these cannons was over 27 feet long and required dozens of oxen to transport. When these cannons arrived outside Constantinople, the defenders realized they were facing something new. The ancient walls had never been designed to withstand. In April 1453, the Ottoman army encircled the city. On the landward side, cannons were positioned to bombard the walls relentlessly. On the sea, the Ottomans attempted to blockade the Golden Horn, the natural harbor protecting the city's northern flank. The Byzantines had one crucial advantage: a massive chain stretched across the entrance of the Golden Horn, preventing enemy ships from entering. This chain had saved the city many times before. Initially, it worked again. Ottoman ships were unable to breach the chain, and the Byzantine navy, though small, managed to hold them off. But Mehmed had anticipated this obstacle. In one of the most daring maneuvers of the siege, Mehmed ordered his ships to be transported overland. Using wooden planks, grease, and manpower, the Ottomans hauled dozens of ships across hills behind the Chinzim, Galata district, and launched them directly into the Golden Horn, bypassing the chain entirely. When the Byzantines awoke to see Ottoman ships inside their harbor, morale collapsed. The siege dragged on for weeks. Day and night, Ottoman cannons pounded the walls. Each impact sent shockwaves through the ancient stone. The defenders worked desperately to repair breaches using rubble, wood, and earth. Casualties mounted on both sides. Despite overwhelming odds, the defenders fought with extraordinary determination. Among them was Giovanni Giustiniani, a Genoese commander whose troops played a crucial role in holding the land walls. His leadership and experience were invaluable. Mehmed, meanwhile, launched repeated assaults to test the defenses. Wave after wave of Ottoman troops attacked the walls, only to be repelled by arrows, Greek fire, stones, and sheer willpower. But the balance was shifting. Supplies inside Constantinople were running out. The population was exhausted. Each day, the walls grew weaker. Each night, the Ottomans grew more confident. By late May, Mehmed prepared for the final assault. He ordered continuous bombardment to create massive breaches in the walls. His troops were promised great rewards if the city fell. Religious leaders proclaimed the conquest as a holy mission. Drums, horns, and chants echoed across the battlefield. Inside the city, Emperor Constantine XI addressed his soldiers and citizens. He spoke of honor, faith, and sacrifice. He made it clear that surrender was not an option. Constantinople would either stand or fall with him. On the night of May 28, 1453, the city held its final religious services. Christians gathered in Hagia Sophia, praying beneath its massive dome, unaware that within hours, the world they knew would end. As dawn approached on May 29th, the Ottoman army prepared for its greatest assault. As the early hours of May 29, 1453 approached, silence briefly settled over the battlefield. Then, before sunrise, the Ottoman cannons roared one final time. The ground shook beneath Constantinople as the largest bombardment of the siege began. Stone balls smashed into the already weakened sections of the Theodosian Walls, widening breaches that defenders could no longer fully repair. Mehmed II launched the final assault in carefully planned waves. The first wave consisted of irregular troops, lightly armed and expendable. Their task was not victory, but exhaustion. They surged forward toward the breaches, shouting and charging, drawing fire from the defenders. Many were cut down, but their deaths served a purpose, forcing the Byzantines to expend ammunition, energy, and strength. The second wave followed soon after. These were better equipped Anatolian troops who pressed harder, fighting hand-to-hand at the shattered walls. The defenders, outnumbered and exhausted, fought desperately. Arrows flew, spears clashed, stones were hurled from the ramparts. Blood soaked the ground beneath the ancient walls. Then came the final wave, the Janissaries. Elite, disciplined and relentless. The Janissaries advanced with terrifying coordination. Drums thundered, war cries echoed, and the Ottomans poured into the breaches. This time, the defenders began to break. A critical moment came when Giovanni Giustiniani, the Genoese commander who had held the land walls together, was severely wounded, possibly by a cannon fragment or crossbow bolt. His injury forced him to retreat from the battlefield. When word spread that their strongest commander had fallen, morale among the defenders collapsed. At the same time, a small gate known as the Kirkaporta was either left open or breached in the chaos. Ottoman troops poured through it, gaining access behind the main defensive lines. Byzantine resistance rapidly unraveled. Emperor Constantine XI realized the end had come. Refusing to flee, he removed his imperial insignia and joined the fighting as an ordinary soldier. According to multiple accounts, he charged into the melee near the walls, sword in hand, shouting defiance. Somewhere amid the chaos, Constantine XI was killed. His body was never conclusively identified, but with his death, the last Roman emperor vanished from history. After more than 1,100 years, the Romang Empire born in ancient Italy was finished. By mid-morning, Ottoman forces surged into Constantinople. Resistance inside the city quickly collapsed. Soldiers flooded through streets, gates, and neighborhoods. According to the customs of medieval warfare, the city was subjected to looting for 3 days. Homes were ransacked, treasures seized, and thousands of inhabitants were taken captive. One of the most powerful symbolic moments of the conquest occurred at Hagia Sophia. For nearly 1,000 years, it had been the greatest cathedral in Christendom. Terrified civilians had taken refuge inside, praying beneath its massive dome. When Ottoman troops reached the building, the doors were forced open. The people inside were captured, and the church was claimed for Islam. Later that day, Mehmed II entered Constantinople in triumph. He rode through the ruined streets to Hagia Sophia, where he ordered the building preserved. Standing inside the vast structure, Mehmed proclaimed it a mosque. Unlike many conquerors, he recognized the city's value and sought to rebuild rather than destroy it. Constantinople was renamed Istanbul and declared the new capital of the Ottoman Empire. Mehmed II earned the title Mehmed the Conqueror. The consequences of the fall of Constantinople were immense and global. Politically, it marked the definitive end of the Eastern Roman Empire. A civilization that had preserved Roman law, Greek philosophy, and Christian tradition for over a millennium was gone. In its place rose a powerful Islamic empire that would dominate southeastern Europe, the Middle East, and North Africa for centuries. Militarily, the siege demonstrated the unstoppable power of gunpowder artillery. Medieval stone fortifications, once thought invincible, were now obsolete. Across Europe, castles and city walls were redesigned or abandoned, entirely changing the nature of warfare forever. Culturally, the fall triggered a massive intellectual migration. Greek scholars fled westward, carrying ancient manuscripts of Plato, Aristotle, and other classical thinkers. These texts fueled the Renaissance, reshaping European art, science, and philosophy. Economically, Ottoman control of key trade routes between Europe and Asia disrupted traditional commerce. European powers, blocked from Eastern markets, began searching for new sea routes. This quest directly led to the age of exploration Columbus, Vasco da Gama, and the eventual discovery of the Americas. Religiously, the event deepened the divide between Christianity and Islam and ended any realistic hope of reunifying Eastern and Western Christianity. For the Islamic world, the conquest was a triumph foretold by prophecy. For Christendom, it was a catastrophe that echoed across generations. The year 1453 is widely regarded as the end of the Middle Ages. Constantinople's fall was not merely the capture of a city, it was the collapse of one world and the birth of another. It closed the final chapter of Roman history and opened the door to the modern age. The walls that had stood for centuries were reduced to rubble, but their fall reshaped human civilization forever.